Kwaba, welcome to this week's edition of Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame, Ghanaian writer, broadcaster, journalist, podcaster, and entrepreneur. And in this week's episode of Ghana in Focus, we are continuing or revisiting our topic about relationships in Ghana. And this week, based on articles that I saw recently, we're asking, does size matter? All right, so that's the theme of this week's podcast. Relationships in Ghana, part 6, I think. Does size matter? Now, before we get into the show, if you like what you hear, please share it with your friends, your family, social media networks. Subscribe to Ghana African Focus on YouTube. Click the notification bell, and YouTube will notify you every time we upload a new podcast. Subscribe to Ghana African Focus on Spotify. Look out, just search for Ghana African Focus on Spotify. Hit the follow button, and that will mean that every time we upload a new podcast on Spotify, Spotify will notify you. So please tell this to your friends and family, and subscribe to Ghana African Focus on Spotify and on YouTube. Okay, so let's get into this week's podcast. Relationships in Ghana, part 6. Does size matter? Now, this is quite funny because I'm reading an article, and I'll put it in the footnotes to the show, that a Ghanaian woman, and this is why I keep saying about how funny Ghanaian women are. So, a Ghanaian woman who married a man, yeah, even though his dick was small, yeah, married a man, yeah, his dick was small, but still married a man. When they got married, she complained that the man's dick was too small. So what the man did, yeah, this is just a long story short, but then we'll get to it deeper. But like I said, I'll put the article in the front of the show, and you can read it for yourself. So when the wife told the husband that his dick was too small, the man, wanted to do something about it, because obviously he has to please his wife. So he, met a doctor, one of these herbalists that we have in Ghana, on a church, and told him his problem. And, the herbalist gave him an ointment to use. Yeah, that ointment to make his dick grow bigger. And so the man bought the ointment and began to use began to use the ointment. Yeah. So in about a few weeks, the man's dick was big, his penis was big. And so this is where the problems really began. So he went to sleep with his wife, who said that his dick was too small, but now it's big. The woman's now complaining about his dick is too big. And so she's not giving him sex. And so now this has caused a problem with the man now doesn't know what to do. He now wants to start using cream to get his dick back to small again, or a reasonable size, so that his wife will engage in sexual interest with him. Now, this brings up a lot of issues. One of them, does size matter? Does size really matter? Because oftentimes, particularly, we black men, African men, right? The rumor is, or the hype is, right? You must have a big dick. Yeah, black man, African man got big dick. Yeah. Your dick is as big as a plantain. Yeah, that's the myth. Yeah, all black men got a big dick like plantain. Yeah, so this is craze. And so if you as a black man, when you're with your woman, yeah, and your dick is not as big as a plantain, then you have some problems. Yeah. But my thing is that, with you women out there, and please, I want to hear your comments, particularly you women, right, who crave for a big penis. So, I mean, how big is big? Is it 6 inches hard? Is it 8 inches hard? Is it 10 inches hard? Is it 12 inches hard? Or is it more than 12 inches? What is big? Yeah. And we have to understand, the women need to understand, they're not, not every man has a big dick. It's nature. Yeah. So contrary to what this myth is about black men, that black men got a big dick, right? It's not true. It's a lie. And that lie comes from slavery. But I'm not going to go into that right now. So, if you're marrying somebody, right, just for the size of their dick, yeah, then you're not really a serious woman because you know, size shouldn't matter. The size of someone's penis, right? Someone's dick should not really matter. And I'll tell you why. For many reasons. So one of which is why, if a man's penis is too big, say it's about 12 inches when erect, right, that becomes too uncomfortable for women to have sex with, right? Because their thickness and the girth of the penis, right, will hurt the woman when the man is penetrating the vagina walls. Yeah, that will hurt the woman. So this, desire, this fixation that some women, whether they're black, Asian, white, whatever, right, have with the size of the penis, right, is just that it's a madness because ultimately it's not how big your dick is, yeah, and we're making like that dick, yeah, or penis or tool, but it doesn't matter how big it is, it's how you use it. Obviously, within reason, if you have a 2-inch dick, right, that's not going to work. Yeah. If you got 3-inch erect dick, that's not going to work. So within reason, so we're talking about 6 inches plus. Yeah. Because 6 inches is according to science, quote unquote, that's the average size dick on a man, on any man, be it black, white, Asian, whatever. Yeah. The average size is 6 inches. So if you are above average, then that should be fine. So if you're above 6 inches as a man, that should be fine. So where women crave for this big, big, big dick, so some man needs to have a dick like a plantain. You women out there, a lot of you can't take that because that will hurt you, hurt the vagina walls. Yeah. And so, we have to understand that it's not about the size of the tool, it's about what the man does with it and how the man is able to satisfy his woman in the bed with the size that he's been given with by the Almighty. And so, women have to also understand that, do you marry somebody because they got a big dick? Yeah. Is that why you enter into marriage? Because of sexual gratification? That, oh, because this man is very well endowed, he's got a big dick, so I'm going to marry him. What about the kindness? What about the man being kind, thoughtful, loving, being a good listener, being, a provider, being someone who can be a good father to your children? Doesn't that count? Hmm? This madness, particularly in Western societies, about the size of a penis, why it kind of blinds a lot of things. And the Ghanaian woman who was complaining, so why did you marry the man then? You see, this is what I'm telling you about some of our Ghanaian women and some women in general. So if the man's dick was small, why did you marry him in the first place? Why? So you knew that the man had a small dick, but because he may have been rich, I don't know, he may have been something that appealed to you, you married him. So as they say in the wedding vows, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, blah, blah, blah. So if you married a husband who had a small dick, then that so be it. Yeah, because you married that person, yeah? It wasn't forced to marry him, you decided to marry him. So the fact that he's got a small dick should not mean then you complain about this and that. Because that tells me that you're married for the wrong reason, A, and that B, you're not really concerned about marriage, all you want is sexual gratification. And sexual gratification is no basis for a loving, long, lasting, wholesome, fruitful marriage. No way. And so, these are some of the nuances that women take on board that, if they're not careful, can destroy relationships. So the very example now that I've given you about the Ghanaian man whose wife complained that his dick was small, went to see a herbalist to get a bigger dick via ointment. Now he's got a bigger dick, right? The wife doesn't want to have sex with him because it's too big. So now you're putting pressure on the man, and now the man doesn't know what to do other than stop using the ointment and hopefully thinking that his penis will shrink enough so that the wife will have sex with him. And like I said, what is it about you women going to marriage with? What agenda? Yeah, do you go into marriage with? Because from what I'm seeing in Ghana, in other parts of the continent, and also in the Western Hemisphere, women do not necessarily know what they want. They think they know what they want, but in reality, they don't know what they want. Because if this is an example of why you married a man or why some women are marrying men, then that does not bode well for long, wholesome, meaningful, loving relationships. Yeah. And so, yeah, sex is important in the context of marriage. But even if you're a Christian, right, and you believe in the Bible, sex is not, sex is not how can I put this? Sex is not a commodity. Yeah, sex is basically about reproducing, having children, and that's what sex is about in marriage. So when some women come and berate their men who've got small penis, small dick, it makes you wonder what is their real agenda within this marriage. Yeah. And I blame that Ghanaian woman, because that Ghanaian woman, you knew your husband had a small dick, right? But you still married him. So that tells me that there was something other than the size of his dick that made you marry that man in the first place. Yeah. So this is why we're talking about this issue about, relationships and the size matter, because a lot of women, unfortunately, because of stereotypes and because of, a lot of these fake films that they're watching, and, this mythical societal norms, they're falling for this quite trash that man should have a big dick like a plantain. A, that's impossible. B, that's unrealistic. And C, it's unnatural for a man to have a penis the size of a plantain. Size of a plantain. Yeah. But more importantly, you do not marry a man for the size of his penis. You marry a man because he loves you, he respects you, he treats you like a woman, a queen, he's kind to you, he's a father figure, yeah, and it's somebody that you believe in your conscience can be a good provider for yourself and for any children that you beget after the marriage. That is what should compel a woman to marry a man, not the size of his tool. Because ultimately, right, as a man ages, yeah, two things happen. And this is just part of the natural aging process. The same with women that I'll come to in a minute. So with men, the older the man gets, the less virile his penis becomes. So when you're in your 20s and 30s, your dick, your penis, right, is upright and virile. From 40 onwards, it's just a natural course of life, nature. That potency that was in your dick as a man when you're in your 20s and 30s, when you come onwards, right, that begins to dissipate. Yeah, or the power of the penis is not as powerful in your 40s or 50s as is in your 20s and 30s. And this is where you can take some natural, I'm not talking about Viagra, because Viagra is very dangerous. Yeah, because that can give you a heart attack. But I'm saying that there's a lot of natural remedies out there that you can take when you're in your 40s onwards, right? That will make your too virile as if you were in your 20s or 30s. Secondly, again, as men get older, some men, not saying all, but some men lose, the appetite for sex. So their sex drive becomes low because they've got low testosterone. Yeah, because testosterone is the compound that gives men that virility to want to have sexual relations with women. Now, if that man is lacking testosterone, right, his tool is not going to work as it is. Yeah. And also, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, because of the environment and also the diet, right, many men after 40 get what we call erectile dysfunction, yeah, whereby the A, not able to get an erection, a full erection, and or B, they can't sustain the erection for a period of time that will enable them to penetrate a woman deeply. Yeah, to allow the woman to come and probably to allow him to also come as well. So that's just a natural course of nature, natural course of life. So women should be aware that these are things that men suffer from when they get older. Same with women. So men, you have to understand that when women reach a certain age, she don't want sex anymore. Particularly you've married her and she's had a couple of children. A lot of women after they've had children don't want sex. Yeah, because they've fulfilled their role as women by having children. Yeah. So sex in women, in particular women over 40, right, is something that, unless you've got a high sex drive, is something that a lot of women do not crave for. Also, the organs, yeah. When a woman particularly has had her children, right, that desire, that kind of desire for sexual activity isn't really there as it was in their teens, 20s, and 30s, because those you could say are the peak years for a woman to reproduce herself. Don't get me wrong, a woman can have children in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Yeah, that is still commonplace, particularly in Africa. Not so common in the Western world, right? But in Africa, women are having children in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. But that is rare. Yeah. But like I said, the peak for women, right, is between 18 and probably to about 40. That's the peak time when Black women, African women have their children. And so after that age, you see that a lot of women, right, lose that desire for sexual intercourse or for sexual relations. And so men need to understand that as well. But going back to, this thing about the size. Like I said, the size of a man's penis, right, does not matter. It's about how the man uses it, right? That is able to satisfy and fulfill a woman's sexual needs. Yeah, because the bigger your penis is, right, in actual fact, the more damage you're going to do to a woman's vagina. Yeah, because women find it very discomfortable when a man has a larger penis, i.e., 10 inches plus, and penetrates a woman's vagina, because that can cause a lot of pain and discomfort within the woman. So it's not the size, the bigger your penis is, it's actually, yeah, how you use it. Yeah, and women must understand that, and some of them do, but size is not the be all and end all. And so, we must come to a realignment, a proper understanding of what marriage is about. Yeah. And ask yourself as a woman, because obviously, this thing has come out because the actions of a woman criticizing the size of husband's penis. As a woman, you must ask yourself, why am I getting married? Yeah, what is my agenda, or what is my reason, or what is my rationale of marrying this man? Is it because I truly love him? Is it because I want to bond with him and have a family? Is it because I want to bond with him and build something that we can share together and our children? Do you want to grow with that man? Do you want to marry that man because he's a kind man, that is considerate, that is gentle, that is loving? You see, these are all qualities that women have to really consider before they even think of marrying a man. Because if you marry a man, as this Ghanaian woman did, right, for money, probably, and then, she had other, agenda, i.e., sex, and then realized that the man hasn't got a big penis, then you're going to get frustrated within the marriage, and then obviously that marriage could break down or have you. And so, for me, the moral of this podcast is, right, think before you get married. Think about what you really want from a marriage. Think about why you are entering into marriage in the first place. Because marriage is a commitment. It's a lifelong commitment. Yeah. And you don't marry somebody just because you've got a big dick. That's ridiculous. And so the moral of the story is essentially, size does not matter. It is essentially how you use it that matter. And more importantly, it's other things outside of the size of a man's penis that should count when a woman is choosing a life partner to be with. And so, like I said, I will leave this article, quite a strange article, in the fullness to the show. And in next week's Ghanaian Focus Relationships, we'll be talking about, should you as a man pay on your first date? So should you pay for a woman on your first date? Yeah. So from myself, Kwame, and from all the crew here on Ghanaian Focus, is thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you next week for some more Ghana in Focus.